Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Charles from the channel Books on Stereo. I'm here to bring you a really special guest. I have the A.L. Jackson here on my channel. If you haven't read her books, like you need to get emotionally wrecked, get that healing from her books, and then just the perfect amount of steam. But how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm so excited. Ever
I'm
since
excited to be here.
ever since I talked to Lauren Rowe and she mentioned you in that interview, I was like, oh man, I have to talk to A.L. Jackson.
Oh,
I was
I
like, we
love
have to make it
Lauren. She's
happen.
amazing. Awesome, awesome. Well, I'm
So my
excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on my channel. And the first question I wanted to ask you is what kind of got you started into writing romance? Were you always a romance reader, or you just always knew like this is what I want to do, writing wise?
I kind of just fell into writing. I never really planned to be a writer. I'm not a trained writer in any way. I used to write poetry in college, but nothing significant. It was just more doodling with words. I just always really loved words, but never thought I could be a writer, write an actual novel. But the thing is, I've always read romance. Like I used to sneak my grandma's, Ab Ripper novels, when I was like in fourth grade from her house, and I'd be reading them on the bus. And so I've always had a love for romance. I love romantic elements in film and just I think love is like the heart of our society and just as people. So it's something that, is just always that I always want to explore. And I like reading romance. So when I started writing, the first story that came to my mind, of course, was a romance. And I wrote it just as like a kind of a hobby. I don't even know if I want to call it a hobby. It was almost like I'm just going to sit and write this story just for, I don't know. I can't not do it. And I did it and I kind of just never stopped.
I'm so happy you never stopped. And it's interesting that you bring up that you used to write poetry because that's one of the things that I always can tell distinctly about your writing. There's like a lyricism to it that like even when I'm listening to audiobook, I'm like you can hear like there's pauses and there's cadence and how the characters
Yeah.
talk and how and just how they're thinking internally. So I'm like,
It comes out naturally. I get asked about that a lot, like why I write that way. I can't not write that way. It's kind of, when I'm writing, like I have a very like a flow, and even like you can see like my body moving that way. My daughter jokes that I'm like composing like an orchestra, because I'm like, as I go, and like I do like fast and I slow, and then so I just kind of get in a vibe as I go. And I actually have to go back and like edit and clean it up because it's so messy when I'm just like flowing that I have to kind of like take some of those sentences and make them whole sentences. But I do leave a lot because I feel like that's just my signature style, and people either love it or hate it because it is, it is different. A lot of people, I just actually read a review that somebody was like, she had an arc of Give Me a Reason, and she was reading it and she took her a while to get into it because she'd never read me before. And she was really surprised by that, that cadence. And she said by the end she was into it, but it definitely took her aback when she first started. Like, what the hell is this?
because I know immediately that I'm in an A.L. Jackson book. Like you could just hand me a passage. I'm like, A.L. Jackson probably wrote this. Like, where's the rock star? Where's the alpha
Yes.
bad boy? There's someone here.
Like I did it. But well, thank you. That means so much to me. I love that. And when I first started writing, I kind of tried to like tame it a little bit, but now I'm like, whatever, just like pour it out.
Just do you. Like I will keep on reading. All your fans will keep on reading. Like even for the fans that like I didn't like A.L. Jackson's writing, the covers are alone convinced. I was like, once I give me a reason, I'm like, I'm gonna have to read that. Like,
Awesome. Awesome. I can't wait. It's my favorite I've written. So excited.
oh really?
Yeah. It was one of those books that hit me out of nowhere that when I finished, I was like, oh my God, I just love the vibe between these two characters. I love them so much.
Huh. So I was wondering too, when you go about constructing a romance, do you always have to know the characters, or do you more think about the terms of tropes that you want to use in the book?
Um, like I felt like the trope's really easy as I'm putting things together because I write so differently. I don't know if that's the right word. Um, it's almost like I can fit a trope into whatever. So I'll sometimes pick like, oh, I want this to be, I read a lot of single parents because it's probably going to be a single parent romance in some way or another. But I'll kind of like just pick a trope that I'm really more just focused on like the characters themselves. So it's like that's just like kind of the little back, building the story. I usually write the characters and then I go in and fill in the details. So if I need, an element because I had created, if it's a companion novel that I already like created that, XYZ, or he's a rock star, or he's owns a a motorcycle shop or whatever it is, then I can kind of just go back and fill that in as I'm, imagining what the plot is. My stories are less plot driven, they're more character driven, so I kind of fill in the plot stuff afterward.
Which I appreciate. Sometimes it's a nice change of pace to read, like where the character you actually just get to follow their trajectory. You really get to know these characters. Like
Yeah.
in one book, I was like getting to know the characters. The romance doesn't just like shoot out of nowhere and they're like going at it by chapter 2.
Right.
Like you take your time, you build the
Got a
characters.
little slow burn going on there usually.
Sometimes I'm like, A.L. Jackson, like stop with the slow burn. Let them get together. What is all this angst and drama? And that's just me speaking from my romance novellas. I've been ruined by like the
Yes.
Jessica Kane, like by chapter 3, they're already going at it. So I'm like, all other books are at it like a disadvantage.
Yeah. And that's the funny because I write such slow burns, but when I'm reading books, sorry, it's thundering, so my dog's getting nervous right now. When I'm reading, I'm like, come on, let's do this, And then I'm like, you make your poor readers go through hell to get to this point. So you just slow down and read these chapters.
And speak about angst, I just recently reread Hold On to Hope. And that book, I forgot how much you put those characters through. And I was like, I felt like messaging you on Instagram, like, A.L. Jackson, like, we need to talk. I need these characters to like go through like half of the drama because like they just like need to be happy.
I know. Evan is, oh my gosh, he was definitely my favorite kid I've ever written. And so getting to write his story as an adult it just felt like a completion for him because I just loved this little boy so much and Follow Me Back. And I loved, of course I love the characters, I loved writing that story, but I feel like the child stood out so much to me. He was like the heart of that story, and getting to write his love story with Frankie Lee was just, I don't know, I loved it. But yeah, they went through hell for sure. And, it was almost like a bittersweet ending too, because, I couldn't just like miraculously make him, completely healed. I mean, I tried to make it as real as possible, because, with all my research and everything that, what somebody would go through that has that sort of disease and disorder, I mean, that's a lifelong thing that he's going to be struggling with. So it was a lot. Lots of tears shed for me.
All your audios are like fantastic. And I think in some ways your writing translates like so well to audio. Like, I don't even know like if you like think of that honestly when you're writing, or that's just like, it just suits. The audiobook is just like, just listening to audiobooks, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just like, I'm in awe.
The narrators that get my style. And that's why, I use Andy Art and Zachary Weber a lot because they really understand my flow and they get the kids and they get the cadence, that sort of thing. But I've kind of been expanding out and having some new narrators as well. So it's really neat to see the way that they bring the story to life as well. So it's neat to, everybody has a different impression. It's almost like a movie, like narrators are acting. So you get those different variances because they takes the story in a different way sometimes. So I don't know. I love that. So I love that you're loving the audios.
Yeah, and one quick question. Was the ending of Hold On to Hope like ever going to be a little bit different? Were you thinking about giving him like a full, like he makes a full recovery, his heart condition is no longer? Because I have seen romances where like a character is like, I think I read one where there's a blind character, and by the end, they can all of a sudden see. And I was like, wait.
No, I didn't consider that because I felt like that would do him an injustice because of all the stuff that he went through. To me, the character was very real. And, I really love that child and like the stuff that he went through as and his poor mom. And, I think that would almost like shortchange it if I just miraculously made it, or with a book, because there's people that truly go through that. And and of course you want hope and it's romance. So that's why I did give them that really nice happily ever after. But I wanted it to still remain true to the character at the end.
Because in the book, he has some groveling to do when he showed up with a kid. I was like,
yeah, he did, didn't he? I was like, excuse me. And I started that book without the kid in it. And then I think I got about 30%, like 30,000 words. And it just like hit me. And I was like, oh shit, I got to go back. And, oh, am I allowed to say that on here?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. I had to go back and totally change it. And then it got really heart wrenching because there wasn't enough emotion there. And then once I realized like his struggles and like what he must've been questioning himself and like his whole life and, was he a burden or a benefit to his family? And once I started seeing those scenes, there was no going back from it.
And I also want to touch on Kiss the Stars a little bit, the first book in the Falling Stars series. Like, I absolutely love that series, especially the covers for that
Oh,
one. Like, oh my.
they're amazing, aren't they? I love those covers. I look at them all the time. I'm like, ooh, I have all my books over here on my bookshelf. I have to peek over here. So I'm always like using inspiration for like I look over and go, oh wait, I want to like check out the cover for, because I'm very visual. I do a lot of Pinterest boards, and when I create the covers, I try to almost like not replicate, but like grab that vibe of whatever the board is. And I think that those covers were just the images were so amazing that I was able to find, and I used different photographers for each book. And so I think it gave each of them their own vibe.
Okay. Drain me like a battery, because then I reread that in the first book in the Bleeding Stars series. I was like, oh my goodness.
Right, yeah.
I was like, I need to pick up the series because the stories are so intense, but they're so incredibly grounded. It's not like the romance takes the time to develop. So where did those kind of stories kind of come from? Did you always kind of just say, hey, I want to write a rock star romance? And because it's a rock star romance, but it's so much more than that.
Right. And
it's about
I
the actual character.
Rock star romance done the A.L. Jackson way, because it's not going to be, because I get so many people say this wasn't what I was expecting, because they hear rock star romance and they think it's going to be this douchey guy on stage, and which I like to write characters that are really like have dealt with like real life problems that everyday people might see or have experienced. So I write about like drug addiction in there, and I write about just a lot of mistakes that we might have made in our past that are affecting us today. And so I kind of use those things. And I think that Bleeding Stars got really heavy when I first started writing A Stone in the Sea, and that whole thread with the drummer that overdosed and like all those things. And I never like really set out. I don't like set out to do anything a certain way. This is just naturally what comes out. So I don't know if I'm morbid or I just really am like, I don't know. And they're not that dark, but they're deep, I guess. They're heavier stories. And so I don't shy away from topics that, somebody might be dealing with. And sometimes that's hard. People really either love those kind of stories or they want something really light. So, you don't usually go to an A.L. Jackson book if you're wanting to read a rom-com. I just, that there's going to be some topics in there that are going to be, can be kind of tough sometimes.
But you handle them so delicately as well in all the novels that I read from you. You take time to delve into someone's tragic character's backstory, or someone ODing, or someone going through abuse, and you actually have to go through it with the characters, because I feel like you get to know the characters in your books so well, and I can keep them all distinct in my head.
Really?
You have like so many books. I'm like, that's a plus for me.
Me too, and I just wonder if it's just me as an author, but I do have people say that they feel like they really get to know my characters, and I think it might just be the way that I write, because of the because I do write a lot of emotion, and there's each scene is really long. A lot of stuff might not happen in that scene, but you feel it. You feel what that character's feeling. And so that's usually my goal. Is like my goal when I write a story is I want to write something beautiful that the reader feels and makes a mark on them. Like I don't ever want to write a story that, not that my stories are so touching or whatever, but like my goal is always that, I write a story that matters in some way, that a reader might pick it up and be healed in some way or inspired in some way, or, you know what I mean? Like I want it, they're always filled with hope too. Like they deal with a lot of topics, but then I want it to always, I always write happily ever afters, because I think that we need that. We need that hope that we can make it through the other side, find redemption. I write about redemption a lot.
And you make your characters earn that redemption. It's not like just like, oh, we all forgive each other and then we move on. It's like, no. You actually put the characters through their paces.
Yeah.
And two, I love how your books don't have drama for the sake of drama. It feels like it's all necessary to that character. It's not like all of a sudden, because like some of your books have a little bit of a romantic suspense edge.
Yes.
I was like, I know it's a little bit. I was like, oh, Jackson likes like a little it's like a little surprise going halfway through the book. I'm like, did we get a romantic suspense subplot?
Yeah, and
I love it.
It usually gets wound in there and I feel like definitely the Falling Stars series really started having like a little bit more of that romantic suspense in there. Same as the Confessions of the Heart series. I started, I like those just like elements, and it's usually not the focus of the story, but it's the subplot that's kind of weaving in there. And it's usually because of a mistake that was made by one of the main characters sometime in their past. And so I like to weave that in.
Yeah, and I was curious too. Do you prefer writing standalones, or you prefer following like a couple for a trilogy of books? Because you do have the Regret series, I believe is the name of the series, where you follow
Yeah.
the same couple all
You
throughout the
know,
books. Do you have a preference?
I definitely like writing a single book for each character. I like the interconnected standalones because I like developing a family or friends or, these really tight knit group that then I can weave in their happily ever after as I go. But it was really hard for me. So Take This Regret was the second book that I wrote. So I wrote a full standalone first, my very first book. And then I wrote Take This Regret. And it was, still remains my best-selling book I've ever had. And so people were asking me for more of them. And I was a really inexperienced writer. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I can go write like how they got together. So I actually wrote the what's it called? Oh my God, that word's escaping me.
Prologue?
Um,
Prequel?
Prequel. Thank
Prequel.
you, Charles. Oh my gosh. I'm a writer over here, but I cannot remember what that word is. Anyway, so I went and wrote that, and then I just decided to write, I wanted to round it out and do like the third book just to kind of give them a full happily ever after because people wanted more of them. But that's the one series that I feel like I kind of had unnecessary drama just to have it because, I was trying to find material for that. You know what I mean? So it feel as natural as the other stories do. So I think I like having that just, kind of rake them through the coals in one book, give them their happily ever after, that, really romance. And then you're able to see that progress as, we have the companion novels. Although A Stone in the Sea and Dreading to Breathe was really long. I just had to cut it in two because it would have been like 250,000 words if I just left it one book.
But taking a little bit of a detour and going to some of your a little bit lighter fare, the Hollywood Chronicles. I feel like that's like the lightest, most rom-commy that we'll ever get from you. But even then, you still take a sledgehammer to our hearts in those two books. I was like, you have a fluffy time, and then like the ending comes around, I'm like, oh man.
Oh man, it's hard. Yeah,
I'm in my feels right now.
And it's funny because and I think that we pulled that off, because I wrote that with my friend Rebecca Shea, and we just kind of sat down. We wanted to do it as a total side project, and we both write a little bit heavier when we write our full length novel. So we were like, hey, we're just writing these. They are novellas. They're shorter. They're like 40,000 words, and then each of us wrote half of them. So it was really a short amount of material for us to write. So we knew if we were going to do something quick like that we couldn't get really deep. And so that's why we did it kind of fun, like just to kind of like, stretch our wings as writers, because we don't write a lot of rom-coms. So we wanted to see if we could make something fun and flirty, but then also we wanted to have the emotional punch to it as well. So that's why we kind of did those, kind of quick arcs and then happily ever after for them.
Like, I was hoping you would write more in One Wild Night. There's an assistant character to the main hero. I was like, oh, yeah. I love her. Like,
do you love her?
I was like thinking in my head, I was like, there has to be romance for her. Like the main character goes on like
yeah, she got fired. So like, what does she do from there? Yeah, that'd be fun. I would love to do that, and Rebecca and I have a ton of fun writing together. I think we both just kind of got bogged down with, writing other stories and deadlines. And she also, has a full-time job. So her writing time is really precious to her. So I don't like to steal any time away from that. Also like writing, those kind of projects and stuff. But who knows, we may write something again together some year. Nothing is in the works, but I never say never because we don't know what's going to happen.
Like there's something there.
I love that. I love that, like a character that's like the bad guy, you can totally like, and I love writing stories of redemption. So I could totally write that. It would be fun.
See, like I'm like giving you the ideas. It's just like what your books have done to me. Like I just like read them. I'm like, oh, that could be a good romance. Like you could do that, and you could do that, and you could do that. Maybe I should pitch this to you.
Yeah, I like it.
But then too, I want to also talk about your newest release, which should be out today. You can go, I'll leave links down in the description box down below so you guys can go click it on Amazon. It's Give Me a Reason. So can you tell me a little bit more about, we know that's a single. Okay.
I have a copy right here because I'm in love with these paperbacks. I'm like, I can't get this on the screen. You guys look at that. Is that not gorgeous? And it's the first book I ever did with like these amazing chapter title. Oh my gosh. Anyway, sorry. So yes,
I need to order paperback from you now.
they're so beautiful. I got so excited when they came, but I'm really excited about it. So it's a new series that I'm doing. It's called Redemption Hills. There is a little bit of a spin-off from something else, but I kind of wanted to write something brand new just to take a break from the rock stars for a little bit, because I do intend on going back to them at some point in time. But this is about it's a series about three brothers who were brought up in an MC that their dad was the president, and they kind of got away, escaped from that life, but they have really dark backgrounds. They're probably the darkest characters that I've written, because they've done some really bad stuff, like out of choice. That was their life before they left. And so lots of twists. It's a little bit that's heavily romantic suspense. Like, of course, it's still character driven, and these two together are so amazing. Like, oh my gosh, it's so hot. I absolutely love them. But yeah, it kind of kicks right off with a little bit of suspense in this one. So I love it. So
okay, now I'm like even more hyped to read this. Like, we're just gonna have overdue library books. It's fine.
Like, it's okay. We can recheck it out, right?
We can recheck it out. Like, I'll get to it eventually. And so do you already have dates set up for the next two books? Can we expect another one this year, or into next year?
So it will not come out this year. I'm actually writing a little bit slower, just because I'm a slow writer. It usually takes me 4 to 5 months to write a book. And so I kind of let myself off the hook. But I am like really deep into the second one of the series, and it's another brother, Judd, that you're going to meet. You guys are going to love the brothers so much. They're so fun, and they have a really tight bond. And but so that'll be coming out probably sometime at the beginning of next year.
My second most important question is, are we going to get audio with Andy and Zachary for this one?
It is not Andy and Zachary for Give Me a Reason. It is two brand new narrators I've never used before, but one, Desiree Ketchum, who's been a reader of mine for years, and she started narrating. She has an amazing voice. So she is doing Eden. And then we have Connor Crace. I'm hoping I'm saying his last name correct, but that voice, oh my God. I listened to his chapters and I was like sweating with like, oh, so hot. Like, he's so good, and just like completely nailed it. So I was so excited about it. So he did amazing. But then Andy and Zachary will be back for the second book. Say it's for
okay. I was like, it isn't an A.L. Jackson audiobook. Like,
expand a little bit, just because Andy has lots of stuff going on in her world. She's has doing all these great things in audio and lots of mentoring and all of that. So we're gonna I think she'll probably be doing like one book a series type of thing. So that way each character will get their own voice, which will be really great. I'm excited about it.
That's amazing. And he chose some amazing narrators. I heard of like Connor Crass, like kind of like going through like the audiobook community, and I listened to a book by him. Like, oh my goodness, I can see why everyone is really going crazy over this narrator.
So excited by him. As soon as he came on the scene, I mean, he's really, really good. So
I'm 100% a cover person. Like, I will not read all your books. I've known zero about before going in. I just see a cover. I'm like,
you're totally judging the book by its cover, aren't you?
It works.
It's easy to do. I mean, but that's the thing is, I know that like, and there's lots of, I don't love every kind of style of cover. I have ones that like really appeal to me, and I know like, I'm sure I miss out on a lot of things, a lot of really amazing books because like it didn't draw my eye. But that's really the one thing that we have to spark our interest. So I really want a cover that, signifies what's happening on the inside of the book. I really hope to do that every time, and like have emotion. Like I'm always looking for a very certain expression on somebody's face, which is hard. It's so hard to find covers, because every single time I think there is no way I'm going to find one that matches what I have in my head. But then somehow, like in the end, we end up finding the perfect shot, and I just get so excited every single time. And every single time I do a cover, I'm like, this is my favorite I've ever had, kind of thing.
So anytime I see your books pop up, I'm like, okay, that's automatic pre-order. Just take my Audible credit. Just here.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Just take it.
And that's always my goal. I want to write a book that I'm truly proud of every single time. I try, and I take a really long time to write. So there's a lot of times I'll start a book and I'm like, this is not flowing right. I'm not impressed with this. My readers aren't going to be impressed with it. So I'll scrap it, which I hate. That's painful to get rid of that many words, but it's just part of my process until I really build up and know the characters and I'm able to tell the story I want to tell.
And I have a little bit of a fun question for you. Okay. Since you've written so many books, what are some tropes or subgenres within the romance genre as a whole that you would like to delve into that you haven't tackled yet? Like, would you do like a paranormal?
Oh my gosh. Like
Historical?
paranormal is my heart. Like that is where I would want to like I have always wanted to write a paranormal, and I've had a paranormal series that I started to write, but I didn't feel like it was the right time in the market for it. Because I feel like it's like and maybe I've just built it up, hyped it in my own head because I'm like, I want this to be a movie. Like I see it like this whole thing, you know. It's just like kind of my passion project that I want to do. But I love paranormal, and I think my voice really lends itself to that type of storytelling. So I definitely want to do paranormal. I also want to like to write a women's fiction. Probably, I like I like serious topics and that sort of thing. So I would like to do that. Not really romance, but I feel like there'd also be romance in it. Like some of my books, even I feel like are kind of women's fiction, but they have that really strong romantic element, and they're graphic, so you can't really market them as a women's fiction
As women's fiction.
because of that. Yeah, so those, and then I wish I could write rom-com. Like I would love to be funny, but I am not funny. So
Hey, Hollywood Chronicles is very close. I was like, this is like the closest I think we're ever going to get with A.L. Jackson, like being like almost rock. Like even the end, like you just take a sledgehammer to the relationship. I'm like, oh, we were so
we
close.
had to do it. We had to do it. So, but yeah, I mean, I feel like, I would never do really dark romance, I don't think, just because I write inspirational stories. So that doesn't really, I don't think I would tell that story. I enjoy reading them sometimes. But yeah, that's probably the only thing I would stray away from.
Mm. I feel like dark romance, even the romance community as a whole, I feel like especially for viewers who watch my channel, I'm gonna be very cautious with my dark romance recommendations because it's so like you have to know exactly what people's content warnings are, the trigger warnings,
Yes.
and for me, like especially in dark romance, like you can go as dark as you want.
Like,
I think
give it to me.
I'm like you can go as the only thing.
Love it, and that's the thing is like, but that's just not what's naturally going to come out of me. So I just kind of, I stick with a lot of times. Like I said, I don't really even plan my stories out. I just start writing, or I'll have a vague sense of what I want the plot to be. So it's usually just about the characters is what ends up coming down. And usually there's a child in there, so it's a single parent of some sort. A lot of times second chances, because I like writing, reconciliation and just people getting that, the missed opportunity or the huge mess up that they had, being able to fix it and like showing what that feels like as they go through it. I don't make it easy for them usually, but yeah.
And I love that you do single parent romances in a decent amount of your books because I feel like it's a trope I don't see widely done. Or if they do, they just never write the kids into the narrative. But I love when you get to see those interactions with the kids and like see that struggle and like so many stories that you can tell within that single parent like trope. I just love in your books how you delve into that. Like, what does it mean to get in a relationship? How does that affect your relationship with your child?
Right.
And all those different factors. I love that you delve into some of those more realistic aspects.
I want them, if there's a child there, I want them to be a part of it, because they're going to be like so instrumental. And, you have to make so many, if you're a single parent, and I was a single parent, so obviously I was a single parent because of the way I write my stories, right? So it's something that I had a daughter really, really young, and, I never knew what my life was going to look like. If there was those extra struggles, going through college and just all the things that come that you're dealing with when you're a parent as well. And I don't regret it in any way. So I love to write that, that's kind of something that just comes naturally to me, something I'm passionate about. And, I just feel like she changed the trajectory of my life in such a good way. And so I like to show the positivity of that. And I just feel like children are, inject so much hope into a story. So I really like their little voices in there. And there also are, really traumatic, like, we have Follow Me Back. Like that was like really, he was the center of that story. And so I like that. I like for it to be a real relationship because, when you have kids, like that's pretty much the focus. I mean, not that you don't get to have a relationship with your partner, but everything changes. You don't get to, you're not at the bar all the time, or you're not taking off on some beautiful exotic trip. Like it changes what the storyline looks like. And so I love delving into that. I love telling those stories. I love, and like my children are the most important thing in my life. And I think when I write those stories, I like for it to be that way as well. And so I kind of focus on that.
You do an excellent job. Like I can't praise you. Like even like the way you write the kids to the way you write the relationships between all the characters. I'm just like, oh my goodness, like this is like masterclass. Like and just writing this trope because I feel like some romance readers don't like 100% love the single parent unless it's like done like in a very high steam, very kind of like flashy, over the top type way. But I just love, especially if you have older kids and like them kind of dealing with terms like the parent moving on to someone else and dealing with all that change is like, it just like it
Yeah,
adds a dimension that I don't think you can get in a lot of the stories without having that relationship present in the novel. So
right.
that's like
And
anytime
I
you say
love
single parent, I'm like
to
auto
say,
buy.
Charles, I'm going to recommend a book for you because I don't know if you've read it, For Lucy. And I just stumbled on Julianne. I had never read her stories before, but that cover caught my eye, and it's like just a woman on the cover, and it's like her hair in the back. So it's just so gorgeous. And I know of her, of course. We're kind of in the same circle of authors. But anyway, I read it for the first time, and it is an older child that she's like a teenager, and it's a second chance romance between these parents that have been separated for years. It is amazing. So, and it's like so much, and it's funny, but it's so many feels. Like I sobbed. I don't usually cry when I'm reading stories, and I was crying and crying. So recommended.
I'm definitely gonna go read that because that is exactly my catnip. Like
Yes, it
I
is.
either go like
Everything you said, I'm like, you will freaking love the story.
we're on the same wavelength. This is like why you're one of my favorite authors. I'm like you get my head like,
I feel you.
and then I just have my other side, my romance reading life, where it's just all really smutty novellas that are like
There's nothing wrong with that. I love like a quick smutty novella. Like if I love to be able to like start something and finish it in an hour, like before I go to bed, just like that
mhm.
real quick little thing. And I mean, that's great. I love that. I can't write that because but I love reading it.
I feel like your novella would turn into like an 8 hour audio, eight
Oh,
hour like
absolutely.
300, 400 page book. You're like, this was meant to be a novella.
I'm like, just kidding. We're actually doing a full length novel. And that's actually happening to me right now because
Or
I was doing like this special little choose your own HEA in my newsletter. So like writing a chapter, and then my readers get to choose what happens in the next chapter. And the first chapter I wrote, I was like, oh my God, I have to make this a full length book. So I was like, had writer's block with it because I was supposed to write the next chapter. I couldn't even do it because I like got so wrapped up in like what this would look like as a long book. So yeah, I can't do it. So if my readers are out there listening right now, I'm really sorry about the HEA. I will do it at some point in time, but I got to wrap my head around how to make it short.
yeah, I feel like as romance readers, we demand our HEAs. Like if you leave us hanging for so long, I'm like,
Yes, definitely. Gotta have it. I'm devastated when I get into a book that I think is gonna have an HEA and it doesn't. I'm like, that was not a romance. Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me.
yeah, I feel like, and publishers are getting sneakier about sneaking those in. I think I
Yes.
read one where it was about a breakup and it was marketed as a romance. And it's just about how the relationship fell apart. And I was like, oh,
You're like,
it's
no,
like,
they're supposed to be like heating it back up again.
I was like, is
And
this a
that,
second
and
chance?
I feel like that's like more women's fiction or just fiction or whatever, And I like those kind of stories, but I want to be prepared for it. So that's why I feel like there are very specific things that are supposed to happen in a romance. Dark romance is definitely a different category, but like in your general romance, contemporary romance, obviously rom-coms, that sort of thing. Like I feel like they should be together at the end. A couple has to be together at the end. I don't like a tragic ending for my romance. Like I can do the tragedy in the middle of it, the beginning of it, but I need that, at
You
the
need
end I
them.
need to see it worked out.
I feel like we as readers, we need that like healing of our hearts. So we're not
Yes.
walking around
You
like, Jackson
should. And
just
then you need
destroyed us.
yeah. I mean, there's certain like movies I won't watch because I know they're amazing, but I can't go there. Like my heart cannot handle it. Don't make me do it.
I'm the same. If I hear any TV show if any of my favorite characters have died, I will not. I will just stop watching the show
I'm
on
done.
principle. I'm like,
I'm done.
I love the show, but I'm like, I can't watch it. I'm sorry, I can't watch it. And this is probably the toughest question I have for you. What are
Uh-oh.
some of your favorite romance books? Or I'm going to give you a cheat. You can say authors.
Okay. Well, this is actually I have a favorite book by my favorite author, and she strays out of romance, but the one that is my favorite is definitely a romance, and that's The Law of Moses by Amy Harmon. And she writes deep, deep, deep. Like it is life. Every time I read one of her books, I mean, my heart is changed in some way. Like she makes me think and challenges me, and this book was definitely like another book that had me in the middle of the night sobbing my eyes out, but it's so beautiful and she's such a beautiful writer. So I absolutely love all her books. I'm actually reading a fantasy by her. And I don't know that it's necessarily a romance. I feel like there's maybe a little bit of a romantic element coming, but I'm not sure. And that's the first girl child. I mean, she is like
I've seen that.
phenomenal. Like I can't get over, like I'm embarrassed to call myself a writer in the face of what she does. Like she's
Hey,
so
your books are just as good.
No, she is so phenomenal. Like I'll read a page and I like have to sit back and digest it for a minute because it's so powerful, so beautiful, and so complex the way that she writes. So she is so amazing. If I want to laugh, I'm gonna read Lauren Rowe. Like she just is so great, you know, she's so funny, but in a different way. Like I think when you think of rom-com, she's not quite that because there's like a lot of emotion in her stories, and also the humor is kind of different. It's kind of goofy, which my humor is goofy, which I freaking love. I love that her characters can be just out there and say ridiculous things, and I love that about her stories. I have totally fallen in love with Catherine Cowles, and she does a lot of like she's kind of similar plots like I do. It's very character driven, but like a little romantic suspense subplot in there. She's a really great writer, so I love all her stuff. I mean, there's so many I could go on and on. Love Corinne Michaels. Molly McAdams is my writing partner because we love each other's books, so we just write together. So that's super fun. Just, oh my God, there's so many. Oh, Renee Carlino is also another one that writes really deep and really well. So I love her stories.
Ooh, that sounds like some authors I haven't read from yet.
Awesome.
And
yeah,
so
you have to check them out. Like I like emotional stories. I want to feel a story. So those are the type of authors that I put out there.
Thank you so much for coming on my channel. For you guys watching the video, I will leave links to Amazon so you can go buy. Give me a reason. It should be out today, so go buy it, go support it. You will love it. It's down there in the links, so you guys can go check that out. I'll also leave A.L. Jackson's social media links as well, so definitely go follow her on all social medias. Read all of her books. You will absolutely love them. But thank you again, A.L. Jackson, so much for coming on my channel. It's been amazing talking to you.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been so much fun talking to you too.
Yeah, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys with a brand new video. Bye, everyone.